So hello and welcome back to Go Again Gaming. My name is Az, and today we're going to be exploring the grand adventure as explained and outlined in the article by LSS on their website. This was released on Boxing Day, so it gives us a nice little prelude to the events that's going to happen in Everfest and beyond, I think, because it's very much an Avengers Assemble style story by the looks of it. So yeah, before we go into that, please make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and hit the little bell notification if you want to be notified of any future videos, and check out all of my socials, as you can see displayed here. So I've got Twitter, Instagram, I've got a website which sells unique commissioned art, Go Again Gaming playmats for Flesh and Blood, and I've also got a Patreon account, and also I have discounts available for Wraith and the Card Vault. If you enter Go Again Gaming into the discount code, you'll receive 3% off your order at the Card Vault and 10% off your order at Wraith Energy. And of course I have a Patreon, so if you want to help support this channel directly and the growth of this channel and community, go and check that out as well. So the Grand Adventure, written by Kashan Rao with illustrations from Sam Yang, and all the voices have been done by myself. Let's go into it. Lightning, ice, earth, the elements are entwined in turmoil. A seething storm rages throughout Enion, threatening to destroy Volhaven and its people. The very land itself is twisting and turning, as if awakening from a dark slumber and unearthing ancient mysteries thought to be lost to the ages. The starry-eyed wayfarer Lexi has been tasked with leading a troop of adventurers into the heart of Enion to uncover the origin of this elemental frenzy. She is joined by the travelling bard Yorick, always searching for new stories, the gruff dwarven blacksmith Thorn with a keen eye for craftsmanship, and the aspiring magician Mara, who has a flair for the dramatic. For weeks, our heroes have braved the elements as they venture deeper into Enion, where secrets await them. Despite being used to the cold, Lexi couldn't help but feel a chill run up her spine as she gazed over the landscape. Floating mountains that had spent an eternity frozen solid had shaken off their frosty shell, projecting strange, mechanical, whirring sounds. The wind, normally brisk and flecked with snowflakes, had been whipped into a frenzy of crackling energy. Seismic vibrations rattled throughout the region in this almost rhythmatic pattern, emanating from the centre of the region. Enion was changing. Yorick noticed her concern, which was unusual for the adventure-thirsty wayfarer. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Something just isn't right. I don't know what it is, but I'm afraid for the people of Volhaven. Hopefully the answer lies at the very centre, Yorva's Peak. But what will we find there?" she wondered to herself. The party gritted through their teeth against hail and thunder as they trudged on forward. The earth beneath their feet rumbled as patches of glowing symbols poked out of the soil. At last, the shadows of Yorva's Peak loomed behind a wall of fog. "Can you feel that?" Mara whispered, shivering. The others halted as the air itself buzzed with static electricity, setting their nerves on end. "Curious," murmured Lexi, lifting Voltaire, the silvery bow that marked her as a wayfarer. She drew an arrow from her quiver and aimed high. Voltaire's bowstring hummed with tension. Lexi released the arrow and it soared into the mist, flashing with lightning and leaving a glowing aurora tail in its wake. They gasped as the mist broke away and Yorva's Peak was revealed. The entire mountain had been separated down the middle, as if a giant had ripped it in twain. "So this must have been what was causing the quakes," Lexi exclaimed. "But what could possibly have enough strength to do this?" she wondered. Thorn shook his head. "Look at the ridges. They're smooth. The mountain didn't just break apart. It was built this way." Cautiously they ventured forth, avoiding whizzing boulders that orbited the mountain, propelled by the uncanny static aura. Coming closer, they were able to gain a clearer view of the mountain's interior. The frosty layer that had once blanketed Yorva's Peak has now been dislodged, littering the ground with icy debris. Towering above it, it was a colossal stone statue. Lexi recognized it as the mythical ancient of thunder and ice. The stone was pristine, having been encased within the mountain for thousands of years, hidden from the elements. I don't understand," Lexi said. What is this place, and why has it revealed itself now, of all times? She gazed up at the statue and couldn't help but feel the weight of responsibility on her usually carefree shoulders. Thorn let out a whoop of joy, pointing at the base of Yorva's staff.
Well, that's a lever mechanism if I ever saw one,
he yelled, and heaved at it, stout muscles straining. The others joined to help, and eventually the stone pommel grinded back a few feet, followed by a click. A deep rumbling echoed throughout the mountain as Yorva's strange statue began to rise. The party ran for shelter and watched in awe as the base of the statue twisted upwards. Finally, it came to a halt, revealing a massive door. Symbols were etched into the door's surface from some dialect lost to the ages. It took all of their combined strength to push the door open, revealing steps leading into the darkness. Mara clicked her fingers, producing a dancing rainbow flame that lit the way. The walls were adorned with metal gears, valves and pipes, and every few moments a faint ticking sound could be heard. Eventually they came to a gigantic round chamber. Lexi felt like an insect as she walked past huge pillars, each sporting enormous metal hooks to store various huge weapons.
It's some kind of armory,
Thorn explained, running to and fro like a child in a sweet shop. Lexi felt herself drawn to the centre, where a huge pedestal lay. Deep grooves ran down the pedestal, across the floor and up the pillars, sparkling with a weak silvery glow. The pedestal itself contained a carved hole, perfect fit for a gem, coin, key, or some other small item. The hole was empty and surrounded by the strange text they had seen on the door. Yorick called them over to the walls of the chamber, which were sprawling with painted symbols. Some of the pictures were intricate and beautiful, such as blue crystalline maiden weaving ice and snow throughout what looked like Aria, and others were strange and outlandish, such as an enormous squid-like creature lurking within sunken ruins, and even more had a threatening and sinister feel, such as a blood-red dragon perched atop a mountain of skulls surrounded by hellfire. Underneath each of the scenes was the same odd text. Lexi ran her palm over the wall. Do you recognize it? She asked Yorick hopefully. He shook his head and produced a small leather tome from his pack, copying the inscriptions as Mara held the hovering flame above. When Yorick was done, they took one last look at the chamber, then headed back out into the fray above. Arriving back in Vault Haven, Lexi watched as villagers frantically scurried to pack their belongings. Nobody had time to stop and chat, although they did send some brief smiles her way. She noticed several homes crushed under the weight of an avalanche or singed by lightning bolts. They made their way to the home of Isilf, the oldest and wisest seer in the whole village. He ushered them into his hut out of the cold, and his eyes lit up when they were told what they had seen. Yorick handed him the leather tome. Isilf scratched his head as he flicked through the pages, and then sighed.
This writing, it's old. Probably older than Vault Haven itself. I do not know what it says.
Is there anyone who might know? Asked Lexi with a hint of desperation.
Not here in Vault Haven, that is certain.
Then what do we do? Everything that's happening right now, it all seems to be connected to this writing. Isilf hobbled over to his stovetop, pouring herbal tea for his guests.
There is a place far from here where the elements converge and fate behaves in a strange manner, he said, carrying the tray back to where they sat. Many old mystics, even before my time, used to make pilgrimages up there to seek spiritual guidance. Lexi accepted the warm mug gracefully. Perhaps you and your party of adventurers should do the same. Head over to Corsham.
Aldim lumbered forwards like a relentless locomotive, completely ignoring the chaos around him.
This road used to be quiet,
he contemplated as a merchant's caravan swerved to the side to avoid him, spilling a cart of fruit. With each heavy step, his bulky frame slowly inched a little further, oblivious to the bustling traffic around him who were trying to head in the other direction. The more impatient caravan drivers would curse out, but fell silent when they saw and caught sight of Aldim, merely veering off the road to move out of his way.
Those who tried to push past him were flung off their horses as the beast reared and buckled. Of all the looks they gave him, fear or anger, he noticed none. Deep in thought, Oldham nearly stepped upon a small crying child. For the first time since leaving his frozen slumber deep within Eisenloft, Oldham halted. The child stopped sniffling, gazing up at the oaken one in total shock. Everyone watched with bated breath as Oldham slowly reached within his robes. A woman burst forth to grab the child, her face pale with terror as the massive guardian bent down, peering at them with icy blue eyes. He withdrew his gloved fist and opened it, revealing a tiny, hand-knitted cotton toy. The child reached out with trembling hands and closed it clutched close to her chest. An audible sigh of relief was heard as the mother scampered away with the now giggling child. Oldham straightened his back, feeling the unkindness of age, and resumed ploughing forwards. Excuse me, says an eager voice, to which Oldham did not grace with a response. Hello? The voice pestered again. Oldham drowned it out by delving into a deep, ancient memories of war, bloodshed, and the last desperate stand against the... Hey! The voice broke with such conviction that Oldham stopped dead in his tracks and blinked in surprise. He glared at the bright-haired woman who had interrupted him, then caught sight of her gleaming bow. Wayfarer. Lexi bowed. You must not be from around here, she said. Aria has changed, he said gruffly. Changed? Do you remember a time when it was different? Oldham stayed silent. She beckoned to one of her companions, a bard, who passed her a leather tome. Perhaps you recognize this? Oldham scanned the pages. The markings were old, something about them felt familiar, but he couldn't grasp it. He shook his head and continued walking. The wayfarer continued to skip alongside him, and much to his annoyance, the bard began playing an irritating tune on his lute.
Oldham the Guardian will help us find the missing piece of the puzzle. Oldham the Guardian will help us find the missing piece of the puzzle, yes.
What brings you to the road of Corsham? Asked the wayfarer. Answers, he replied. It appears that we have similar goals. My name is Lexi. Perhaps we can travel together. Oldham paused, then reached out and snatched the bard's lute. He hurled it through the air, where it shattered into splinters against a tree. Now you may join me, he growled and strode onwards. Lexi shrugged apologetically to Yorick, who grumbled and fell back to join the others. Lexi, in the meanwhile, stayed at the frosty guardian's side, respectively slowing herself to his pace. For the last time, it was an accident. Briar boiled with anger as she danced out of the path of swinging fists. The red-faced merchant continued to splutter as he punched wildly. The two circled each other as spurts of lager bursting from a nearby keg rained down upon them. Briar felt a small twinge of regret at having caused the wreckage, but it was quickly replaced by fury when the man clipped her shoulder with a right hook. It wasn't her fault. Nature was wild and so was she. Briar glanced at the ruined keg, which had been busted open by her wayward vines, and then back at the sopping wet man attempting to clobber her. You keep this up and you'll wish the keg was the only thing broken, she hissed, drawing her Rosetta Thorn from its sheath. He continued to yell gibberish and rushed at her. Red clouded Briar's judgment and she stepped back, splaying her palm. Roots burst from the earth, wrapping around the man's ankles, bringing him down like a felled tree. Briar rotated Rosetta Thorn, preparing to knock him out with its pommel, when an arrow whizzed through the air, snaking between them and thudding into the keg. A wave of cold spread from the arrow's tip, freezing the cracks and reducing the torrent of lager to a foamy drizzle. Briar stepped back in surprise. The source of the arrow, a woman with a snowy hair and electric eyes, ran towards them, followed by the oddest bunch of people Briar had ever seen, including an enormous figure with a winter-white beard. The innkeeper took one glance at the stranger's glistening bow and cooled off immediately. She handed him some coins, and he waddled off. The woman turned to Briar, who scowled. If it's thanks that you're expecting, Wayfarer, then you're out of luck. The Wayfarer shook her head. It was my pleasure, but I do want to know where such a unique flower like yourself sprang from. Briar grimaced at the use of the term flower. I hail from Candlehold. I'm the first of my kind to venture beyond the thorns since we were sealed away by the essence of Davnir. Love that for you, said the Wayfarer. I've heard legends of the ancients, Yvor, Davnir, Eisen. Perhaps you may be able to help us after all. The Wayfarer took a leather tome from one of her friends and showed it to her. Briar forced her temper into check and gazed at the pages. She did not recognise the markings, but there was something oddly strange about them. They were calling to her, drawing her in. She snapped the cover shut. I have no idea. The Wayfarer's face fell. Briar turned to leave, but immediately bumped into the bearded giant, who searched her with his steely gaze for what felt like an eternity. Rosetta, he finally mumbled. Briar turned back to the Wayfarer. I may not be able to help you, but the Queen of Candlehold is the wisest person that I know. Sparks of joy returned to the Wayfarer's face. Fantastic. Could you lead us there? Briar marched off. Fine. Just make sure you keep up. The party followed Briar into the woods as dusk fell behind the branches of the legendary Corsham. Yorick couldn't decide who was less fun, Stone Cold Oldhim or Candlehold's sleepy queen. She sat perfectly still upon her wooden throne, face marbled like the tree bark that surrounded her. In fact, if you didn't look hard enough, you would have missed her completely. Oldhim stood further back within the shade, as solemn as the grave. Neither would make an interesting character to his next play, Yorick decided. Please, Your Majesty, begged Lexi, we need to learn what the markings mean. The Queen rasped, without moving even an inch to look at her. Apologies, dear. I must have dozed off again. Our people's safety depends on it. All of Aria could depend on it. Like one blade of grass in a meadow. The Queen trailed off, not bothering to finish her sentence. Lexi exhaled in frustration. Oldhim stepped closer, scanning the Queen's restful face. My memory is clouded, he muttered. But the Rosetta, the Olin. If the Queen was surprised by his presence, she showed no signs of it. Olin, she murmured. You've been gone a long time. Oldhim's brow creased as he tried to recall what had been lost to the passage of time. The Covenant. What happened? A long silence filled the room. When the Queen finally spoke, her voice was soft, but with a hint of sadness. I do not have the answers that you seek. The Queen idly waved a hand, signalling for them to leave. Briar hurled a bolt of lightning at her. Jolted awake, the Queen blinked as Briar stomped towards the throne. The trees rustle, as if nervous. The animals are abandoning their homes. Something is coming, and I fear Candlehold will not be able to remain hidden. There's a reason the Wayfarer and I cross paths. I can feel the Strail calling. There was a creaking sound as the Queen tilted her head to look at Briar directly. Though her face was wizened and hardened, her eyes were kind. I will try, she croaked, gently rubbing her eyes. Lexi handed her the leather tome, and they waited impatiently as the Queen turned each page with a deliberate slowness. At last the Queen glanced up and closed the tome. This dialect is of the Seers. Oldhim's ears pricked up. Handling the tome back to Lexi, the Queen leaned back in her throne, yawning. What do you mean? Lexi frowned in confusion. We have seers in Vaulthaven, but they were not able to decipher it. The Queen chuckled, a sound similar to that of a snoring toad. Not those seers. The seers of old. I don't understand. Who were the old seers? Hidden allies. Bearers of the indigo eye. Find them, if they still exist. Any idea where we could start looking? Asked Lexi. The Queen closed her eyes and exhaled deeply, sinking further into the wood. Back under Corsham's sprawling canopy, the heroes washed their worries away at a nearby tavern. Yorick tuned his new lute, keeping well away from Oldham this time, and began strumming an enchanting melody. Thorn and Briar were locked in an intense arm wrestle, beads of sweat rolling down the dwarf's forehead as he strained to outmuscle her. Mara performed a magic trick for Oldham, producing a dove from her sleeve. With an extravagant wave of her hand, she transformed it into a dazzling rainbow aether flare. The Oaken Old did not crack even the slightest of grins. Lexi wandered away from the party, her mind racing with questions. Where were the seers? Why was there an armoury in the heart of Enion, and what did it all mean? Her eyes were drawn to a poster tacked on a nearby wall. Challenge the showstopper to a test of might. Experience crazy brews from Aria's finest brewmaster. Have your fate foreseen by the whimsical seers. All of this and many more wonders, see it all at Everfest. She snatched the poster and returned to the group, slapping it on the table. Look, she pointed. Yorick rolled his eyes. Ah, yes, because an ancient secret organisation just happens to be conveniently advertising their location on a carnival poster. Any better ideas? Nobody responded except Briar, who just shrugged and went back to crushing Thorn's arm. Lexi lifted her mug. Then drink up, friends. Tomorrow we set foot for Everfest.
So yeah, pretty epic stuff. So the first thing we see in this story, which I'll flash up for you now, is Lexi leading a troop of adventurers into the heart of Enion. And these are some characters that we haven't actually come across yet, so I'm assuming then, in this case, as a result of this new art and story, that we're probably going to see these characters as young heroes in the set. So we've got the Bard, which is Yorick. We've got the dwarf Thorn, and we've also got the magician, which could be a wizard, Mara. So obviously we've got a new class in Bard, which is Yorick. I imagine that's what it's going to be. Then we got a blacksmith, dwarven style character called Thorn. I don't know whether this will be a new class as well, like a blacksmith class. I mean, it seems quite sort of unique and streamlined, because I don't think there's going to be much room for a dwarf outside of Blitz and multiplayer formats. But it's the same with Bard as well. I imagine Bard's going to be a class that cares about buffing all of your allies and heroes, or in an ultimate pit fight scenario, politicking. And it's the same with the dwarf as well. The blacksmith could be some way of maybe buffing the equipments that are out, or something like that, or bringing equipments back from the graveyard once they've been destroyed, and all that sort of thing. So maybe the dwarf blacksmith goes into that, or maybe it's not even a character at all. Maybe it's just for the story purposes. And then obviously we got a Mara, which is the aspiring magician. So that phrase there, aspiring, means that these could all be young heroes alongside Lexi, the adult hero, which makes sense, which is good. So aspiring magician, so that obviously points out the fact that she's probably going to be a wizard, which is going to be good, because we don't have much of a wizard support apart from the stuff with Kano and Arcane Rising and the supplement Crucible of War set. So yeah, first of all, the main points there are these going to be new characters? I think they probably will be, because of the fact that they're accompanying Lexi, who is an adult hero, and obviously Crucible of War is known for having young heroes in the set. Supplementing Blitz and Ultimate Pit Fight, and potentially even PvE in this set as well, as a lot of people are speculating. So yeah, what do you think? Do you reckon we're going to see these new characters? I think we probably will do. It makes sense if they're bringing out this lore piece now, and they are accompanying Lexi, the adult hero, with it being a supplementary set. These are going to be young heroes, so definitely makes sense. So the next part of the story sees him travel into the heart of the mountain, and it's basically like a giant mechanical place filled with Metal Gear's pipes. It's like a big armory as well for giants or something like that. Because if you look at the art here, you can see that there are just like massive axes and massive swords mounted to the walls. So that, it just goes on to show that there's going to be a lot of history in Aria, to the ancients and all the stuff that happened prior to this. And I think Oldham does have memory of the stuff that's happened, but there's also another thing as well, which is they come across this sort of pedestal. Lexi is drawn to this pedestal in the centre of the room, and it has a perfectly carved hole perfect fit for a gem, coin or key or some small other item. So is this the gem that we're going to see? Is this the gem that we saw as part of the Rudy investor sort of kit that we got, which we've seen? And on the back of that gem as well, I saw it as a part of the Let's Visit episode 3. Fabio showed it to me. It did say that it was the Olin that was engraved upon that sort of gem. So I reckon this is going to be. It just goes to show that this is probably going to be the next gem in this set, and it's potentially key to this story here as they go into the mountain, which is interesting. So obviously while they're in this place as well, they got Yorick just jotting down all of the notes and stuff, and then they bring those notes back to one of the seers. Now I think seers in this set is going to be a lot of cards that reference seers and soothsaying and all that sort of thing. I thought we'd get it in the Tales of Aria set, but obviously it makes sense to have it in this one, because I think there's going to be a lot of top deck manipulation, bottom deck manipulation as well with regards to how seers work. Obviously they want to be looking into past, present and future, so it might allow you to sort of sieve through your deck looking for combo pieces or something like that. I imagine that would be the case with what seers want to do. They're not going to be a class, I don't think, but it's just going to be cards that allude to the power of the seers. I think it's going to be generic actions as well, so every character can have either card draw or card filtering to make their strategies more cohesive. Like Azalea, for instance, cares about the top deck. We only have access to Whisper of the Oracle really at the moment, which is a generic action with Go Again, which then allows you to go filter for those cards, but maybe more cards like that would be good. Yeah, that's what I think with regards to that. That's why seers and soothsayers are showing up in this set. We're going to see some stuff like that, hopefully. Thank you very much for joining me. I've been Az, and I hope you all have a fantastic holiday season and just enjoying the food, the drink, the wine, the festivities, the presents, the gifts, and all of the wonderful, fantastic things that Christmas and this sort of time of year brings to us all. And I'm sure we're going to be playing some more games and deciphering more runes in the new year. Much love. Peace.
Odin the Guardian will help us find the missing piece of the puzzle. Odin the Guardian will help us find the missing piece of the puzzle, yes.